Throughout the United States, child abuse and neglect proceedings in the juvenile and family courts have been transformed by new demands, including escalating child abuse and neglect caseloads, increasingly difficult cases, and added responsibilities assumed by the courts. The child protection system as a whole, the courts, social service agencies, and the community face many challenges, including burgeoning caseloads, increasing backlog of cases, increasing complexity of cases, reflecting the increases in drug and alcohol use, homelessness, and poverty. Changes in federal and state statutory requirements for shortened time frames to permanency, increasing competition for limited resources, and an expanding oversight role by the juvenile and family court in child abuse and neglect cases. All of these challenges must be addressed within a framework that recognizes each community's unique cultural diversity and the dignity of families. To perform their expanded role, courts must have a solid grasp on how child welfare agencies operate and what services they offer in the community for endangered children and their families. Our nation's juvenile and family courts need a clear vision of ways to fulfill their responsibilities in child abuse and neglect cases. There is currently a groundswell of activity nationwide focusing on systems change in handling of child abuse and neglect cases. Efforts include the State Court Improvement Program and the Children's Justice Act program, administered by the Children's Bureau of the Department of Health and Human Services. Privately funded programs include the Edna McConnell Clark Foundation, Annie E. Casey Foundation, W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and the Model Court Project of the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges through funding by OJJDP. The National Council's Model Court Project focuses on improving court practice in 20 courts nationwide. These 20 courts are acting as laboratories for the development and implementation of new practices and processes for handling child abuse and neglect cases. They are also serving as mentors for many other courts across the country who are individually engaged in court reform efforts. The Victims Act model courts are both advocates of change and models for change. Each of the model courts, under the leadership of a lead judge, is committed to promoting meaningful systems change in their jurisdictions.
These model courts commit to the implementation of the process of the resource guidelines, as well as sharing and working with each other to develop annual goals that are set by the communities of the model courts themselves. This doesn't mean that any model court is the perfect court. It means that that court is struggling with an issue affecting children and families and willing, in partnership with other communities, to look at how do systems improve, what changes are necessary to produce better outcomes for families, and to examine or allow themselves to become laboratories for change.
Each model court is committed to taking a hard look at how court process is working in everyday practice, how well court process meets federal and statutory requirements, and how well the child protection system as a whole is meeting the needs of children and the families it serves. Featured in our broadcast today are 3 of the 20 model courts involved in the project. Please listen for the common themes which are critical to the systems change process. These include judicial leadership, court, agency, and community collaboration, shared vision and collective action, strategic planning, a systems focus, critical reflection and evaluation, and creativity and innovation. Join us as we examine model court practices for abuse and neglect cases. Hello, I'm Mindy Shannon Phelps, and welcome to this national satellite video conference focusing on model court practices in abuse and neglect cases. We want to extend a special welcome to over 660 downlink sites joining us today from across the country. Our program this afternoon will have 3 short video segments, each focusing on a court which has been designated as a model court due to its efforts to aid child victims. The model courts are serving as national laboratories for meaningful systems change in how child abuse and neglect cases are processed through the court and through the child protection system. While each court must tailor its program to meet local conditions, all the courts share the goal of providing children with a permanent resolution of their cases as expeditiously as possible. First, we will look at the 65th Judicial District Children's Court in El Paso, Texas. The second segment will examine the Essex County Model Court in Newark, New Jersey. And the third will focus on the Jefferson County Family Court in Kentucky. After each segment, a live studio panel will discuss these programs, and you will have the opportunity to phone in and ask questions of the panelists. In fact, we welcome and encourage your comments and questions as a way to connect with others across the country. A toll-free 800 number will be shown on your screen during the call-in segments of our program, and the protocol for placing phone calls is described in your participant packet. Today's program is made possible by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention in cooperation with the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Joining us today is Shay Bilchick, Administrator of OJJDP. Also joining us to provide a national perspective on this issue is Joseph Semede, the recently appointed Associate Commissioner of the Children's Bureau in the Department of Health and Human Services. The Hamilton County Juvenile Court in Cincinnati, Ohio, was the first jurisdiction designated a model court in 1993, and under the leadership and direction of the Honorable Judge David Grossman, several innovations were implemented which significantly reduced the amount of time children remained in foster care. Although retired from the judiciary, he remains active in national reform efforts and is joining us today. Courts and child welfare agencies must work closely together to develop a common understanding of each other's responsibilities and concerns to produce better outcomes for children and families. And joining us by telephone is Gloria Cassell Fitzgerald, Deputy Director of Education in the Chicago Department of Social Services. Welcome to all of you. Shay, I'd like to begin this discussion with you, if you don't mind. The administration and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention have given this issue a tremendous amount of attention. What prompted the movement toward this systems change initiative?
I want to address that, Wendy, but I also want to welcome the audience on behalf of OJJDP to this this edition of our continuing series of broadcasts on issues critical to the welfare of our children and youth in this country. This is a particularly important topic to us, and we have devoted a lot of energy to it over the last 7-8 years. Why is it critical? Well, we're facing a situation where 3 million reports come in annually of children abused or neglected in this country. And we see 1 million of those cases confirmed as children abused and neglected. We know that there's an immediate harm to those kids and horror in their lives. We know the negative outcomes in their lives beyond the immediate abuse of school outcomes, mental health issues that surface, substance abuse problems that surface for them, as well as the long-term impact that some people term the cycle of violence, where a lot of these kids who have been victimized also become violent in their own lives. So we know that there's a significant problem out there. We also know that there are things that work. Systems reform efforts, like the things we will highlight here today in the individual courts that have taken place that are of significance in relation to changing the way we work with these kids when they come in the system. So that's one of the things that we've done, is invest heavily in terms of the Model Dependency Court Reform Project, now up to 20 sites, hopefully to grow to even more. We also know that there needs to be more resources, however, devoted to this problem. One of the things we'll talk about today is that you can do so much just by reforming the systems within which these kids are received. But we also need to look at overall resources that come in. In a way, we'll talk today about how that can happen hand in hand. Then fill in the pieces, the model things that you can do within the court system, the broader system, the prevention efforts that can take hold, as well as the individual things you'll hear about today. A lot of people say just do it, just do the reform, get it underway. We want to get going on this issue, but we want to pay attention